Hi everyone, I thought I would show you today how I made a sandworm sculpture. Sandworms are from the film Beetlejuice, if you don't know, and I wanted to show you how I made one out of foil and cardboard. And the first step is to make the armature. I'm probably going to cover this in clay afterwards. If not, I'll do papier-mâché, but this is stage one, where it's just making the main shape of the body and the head, like the main shape of the head and neck really, and getting that bit down before doing the next stage. So first of all, I rolled up some foil and made a rough mouth shape. Now I realise obviously this is from side on and I do need to make it 3D, but I find it easier to make like one side first and then I can turn it, like make it flat first and then I can make it 3D later. And for this I'm just using some reference pictures that I found online and using those to help me form the shape of the sandworm's head. I started off by making the smaller head that goes inside the mouth because it's like two double-headed, and as you can see what I've done is made the basic shape that I'm going to make, and then now I'm turning it into a 3D shape instead of it being fairly flat. So it's almost like I made the middle slice of the head and now I'm putting the two sides on, if you get what I mean. And the reason I've chose foil is because foil's really easy to manipulate. It's fairly cheap. I mean, this roll of foil cost me about 50p. And it bulks up the sculpture without using like loads of paper mache or clay. So I like to do this because it saves on materials in the end. So as you can see, I'm making the head shape now. It's almost like the shape I'd do like a dragon's head, like base, or almost like a snake head base maybe. And or think of like a sort of dinosaur skull, that sort of shape. And then all I'm doing now is just adding foil to get that round shape, like the smooth sort of dome of the top of the skull. So as you can see, that's more of a 3D head shape, and this is obviously the top part without the lower jaw. And I'm just filling in any gaps with little strips of foil and hot glue, just so it's a fairly even surface for later on when I apply the paper mache or the clay, depending on what I choose. And I'm not worrying about this stage about putting eyes on or eye sockets or anything like that. That'll all be done in the next layer. This is just the armature. This is just the basic shape to give me the shape of the sculpture and give the sculpture some rigidity before I try and make anything else later on. And then what I needed to do next was make the lower jaw, and at first I was going to combine these two pieces to make it longer and then realised the one piece I got was probably long enough. So as you can see, that will go at the bottom and form the lower jaw, and then obviously I've got to fill in the gap in the middle. But if I get this basic jaw frame stuck on first, and then I can build up from there. So as you can see now, we've got a fairly 3D head and a jaw attached to it. And then all I've got to do is fill in that gap in the middle. And the way I did that is I just used some more foil and hot glue, and what I did is I unravelled that other piece of foil I've got, folded it in half and laid it flat over the bottom. And then to make this stronger, you can just add more layers of foil later on. Like so. And then that just fills in that hollow area. And the reason I'm using the hot glue is because obviously I'm putting layers of foil on top of each other, but I'm not sort of completely covering the previous layer, so the pieces of foil would eventually fall off. So it's easy to glue them into place now to make sure they're nice and firm and not going to move when I get to the next stage. And then I'm adding more foil on the inside of the mouth to give that little area a bit of extra strength, because the more layers of foil you've got, the stronger that little area will be. And I'm just sort of marking out the rough shape of the upper jaw from the reference picture that I've got, just getting that shape in there. And then I was contemplating making a separate piece for like the gum line and that, and then I was like, no, I'll just do that out of clay later on. And I just made sure that that jaw piece is well glued into place and he's not going to move anywhere. And then the reason I flattened it down at the back is because it's going to be stuck inside the larger mouth, and obviously I needed the back flat to help me glue that in place. And also later on, I'm not sure how I'm going to mount this yet, but I did decide later on to include the neck. So if I'd have just done it where it was going to be like on a trophy board like I did that tooth monster, then I'd just have the back flat. But at this moment in time I've included the neck as well, so I might have it stand up or have it stick out from the board at the back or something. I'll have a think. I might even have it so it looks like it's sort of breaking through something and coming out the wall maybe. I haven't 100% decided yet what I'm going to do with the final sculpture. And at this stage as well, I'm not worrying about teeth, tongue, fins and spines or anything like that. This is just the basic shape that I'm putting together. So I added a piece at the back here because I needed the head to stick out a little bit further from where it would if I glued it into that bigger jaw. And for the bigger jaw, as you can see, I've just made two sort of big V shapes of foil, put some glue on, and then got some foil I've folded 2 or 3 times and stuck that on to fill in the gap. And that just makes a basic jaw shape, and then you can add more foil on later on to make it more rounded. But this, like I said, this bit's just so I could get that mouthpiece on, and then I'll build up the rest of the sandworm head from this. And I did the same for the bottom jaw as well, where I just glued it onto some folded up foil just to give that strength, and then just ripped off any excess that was getting in my way. And then just make sure you glue the edges to the main frame of the sculpt just to make sure they don't come off, and try not to touch the hot glue like I kept doing. If you do get hot glue on your fingers, by the way, just quickly rub it. Just quickly rub your fingers together, because it spreads the hot glue and it cools it quicker, so you can avoid burning your fingers. Little tip for you there. And then, as you can see, I've got my phone out. You can just about see it peeking up on the top right, and that's just where I've got my reference picture. And this is where I found out that the second mouth I'd made was a little bit too big, so I needed to chop a piece off and make it a little bit shorter. But that's no problem at this stage. It's just a case of chopping off the bit you don't need and then sort of scrunching and folding the foil together to reform the shape at the end. And then I've changed where the fold was for that piece and made it so it fit much better. And also make sure that when you're doing a sculpture like this, make sure you look at it from all different angles. I know on the video I'm showing you a lot from the one side, but I did keep looking at it from the front and from the other side just to see if the sides matched up. Otherwise you'll end up with quite a wonky sculpture. And I did now and again have to like twist and turn stuff that had gone a little bit crooked. So always make sure you look at your sculpture from all different angles to make sure you're getting it right. The reason I'm not doing the tongue as well is because it'll be easy to paint the mouth without the tongue in it. So what I will do is make the tongue separately and then stick it in once everything's painted. So that'll be like the last piece I'll do. And as you can see here, I'm just building up the shape now to make it more 3D. And once I'd built that up, so I got it nice and 3D and the shape that I wanted, then I just trimmed off any excess foil, just checked that everything was nice and secure, and put a bit more glue on any bits that was lifting up. And then just as I said, looked at it from the front and just altered any bits that were twisted. And then the next part was to make the neck. Now the neck obviously has got to support the sculpture, so I decided to use, it's like a really thick wooden tube, really thick cardboard tube from the middle of another foil roll, so it's really strong. I did have a hard time bending it. It's really hard to actually get it to bend, but I put a couple of bends in just to get that curved shape that I wanted for the neck. And because this is really strong card, this will support the sculpture, like all the neck and everything. And when I eventually decide how I'm going to get this sculpture to stand up, the cardboard will actually support the sculpture, and it does now, even with just the foil on and everything. So this is just to give a bit of extra strength. If I just made this out of foil, it probably would bend and twist and stuff with the weight of the head on, although the head's not mega heavy. So this is just for some extra support, a little bit of extra rigidity. And then I use plenty of glue to put this into position. And then you'll see later on what I do is I wrap masking tape around. This is some rubbish masking tape that I'm using up. It's really not very sticky, but it's enough to sort of bulk up an area and fill in some gaps. And then glued more foil over the top of that just to make sure that it's well stuck down to the piece, so it's not going to come off. And I can actually like swing the sculpture around by the neck and it doesn't come off or anything, so it's nice and solid now. So here I'm just getting the positioning how I want, and I'm just putting a little bit of tape on there because that bit kept opening up. And then I'm just using extra pieces of tape to join the neck piece onto the head and hold it in position. I then wrapped plenty of foil around the neck and added some more pieces of foil to blend it into the head shape. And it looks like this so far. So as you can see, that's the basic shape for the head. And in the next video, I'll show you what to do next. So thank you for watching for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.